Hi and welcome to this video blog with me, Wayne, from SwimCycleRunCoach. Well, it's Christmas. I hope all of you have a wonderful Christmas. But it's the time of year when we really want to plan next year a bit better than perhaps we did last year. And the way to do that initially is to look at past results. And the most recent results you've had are from this year. And you really need to keep those in fairly good order. We're going to go to the computer in a second. And look at how I would keep results for particular clients and how I would plan next year based on the existing results from this year and improvements that I think we can make per client. And obviously that's going to be very individual. You might think that I'm a peak for a particular sport and not for others, or you might have to sacrifice speed for certain things. The client we're going to look at, I wanted to do in this particular year both half Ironman and qualify for sprint races and do sprint championships. So that's a bit awkward. You might have to sacrifice speed for something else. If you're a cyclist and you might cycle at 40+ kilometers an hour, you might say to yourself, well, hang on a second, to become a good runner, swimmer, I've actually got to sacrifice a bit of that speed on the bike, so I might not choose to cycle at 40 kilometers per hour, but just take that back a bit so I have more left for the run when it comes to it, and practice the run more. Or I might spend more time training this year on cycle and on swimming and running because my cycle is actually that good. It depends actually what you want to do and your base that you're starting from. You might just say, okay, well, this is what I've done in my first race this year. That's my basis. I'm going to do more races next year, but I'm going to come back to that race that I've done, and this is going to be the improvement I'm going to make. Anyway, we'll head over to the computer and come back later and discuss what we've found.
Okay, so to check out potential targets for next year, the best place to start, as we've said, is this year's races. And here we're looking at a particular client who wanted to race two distances. They're particularly a specialist in sprint distance, as you can see here, but they also wanted to race Ironman or half Ironman slightly earlier. Now the half Ironman race came 6 weeks before the major target, which was this sprint champs, European champs, which they qualified for. That made it slightly difficult because we had to tone down the training to go long. We had to make sure he could do this long distance race. But here we've got all of the results, as you can see, in terms of the distances done and the times that it's taken to do that. And that gives us an average swim time in 100 per 100 meters, cycle speed and run speed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just average those out here. If you see, these are averages for the sprint distance. In terms of the long distance race, they're not particularly useful because you do have to slow down. You can't go at the intensity in a half Ironman race that you can in a sprint. That would be utterly ridiculous. So the speeds that he's gone here are either being affected by uphill or downhill, things like that. But we certainly weren't going to try and maximize our speed. We were just going in the Ironman to complete the race. So these averages down here that you see are from the sprint and individual races, and in particular I think you can note that this big count race where he went 101.07 average, that's 141 per 100, is actually slow for him, so that's affecting this average of 98.22 seconds per 100, and therefore I think we can go more the European champ speed, which is 95.6. I think we'll take that down, and our actual target for next year I think should be, in his target race, should be 95 seconds, which is 135 hundredths, and that's quite reasonable. He might even beat that slightly if we get some good training blocks in before the big race. In terms of speed on the bike, well, we had 35.3 as an average from his 35.64 and 34.95 at the European champs. Well, the 34.95 is actually being affected by the fact it was a reasonably hilly course at the European Championships, so that actually is slower than he would have done, and had it been the big cow course again, he would have actually improved that to something like 36.5, 37 kilometers an hour. So I think 36.5, as you can see here, should become our target for the major races. And again, when we're looking at the run speed, which averages at 14.6, it's being slightly distorted by this 15.23, but also the European Champs being again one of those races. 14.14 is distorting it. So 14.6 I think can be improved upon, because 15.23 as a speed, 15.23 kilometers an hour, is actually his best time that he's ever done. So 15.23 as a standalone might give an indication that he could potentially maintain 14.75. If we can get that 15.23 slightly higher before his major target next year. And his major target next year is actually the qualifier for the 2014 Sprint Champs in London, which is at Bristol. So at that race, we want to hit all those speeds. We've got 11 minutes 53, I think it is. And here we go, 33, 32, 50. That's 36.55, which is good enough. There's 32.50, and in terms of running, we're looking at 2012, 14.85, 2020 will actually be more like it, 14.75 we actually hit. So we've got those speeds there that we think will qualify him for the London World Championships in 2014, and that should get him through. But we've got these various tests and races that we've put in before then. And remember, this is 23rd of June in 2013, and our race prior to that is 2 weeks prior to that. Our last race is the Blenheim Triathlon. Now, the Blenheim Triathlon, we're going to test certain things, but all of these are going to be tests of particular things, starting on the 29th of April, where we've got an aquathlon. And in the aquathlon, it would be nice to think that we could hit that swim speed, but don't care about the run speed. We're just going to have a nice steady run, and don't care what speed we come in at. We're going to say we're going to try and hit 22:30 just to really enjoy it after we hit that time and we get our 95-second hundreds or 1:35 hundreds. The next race is the Hatch End Triathlon, much shorter. It's 400, 17.3 and 3k. So in all of these, we think we should be able to hit the target times, except in the bike. So what we're going to do, we're going to hit the target time for the swim, hit the target time pacing for the run, and in the bike, we're just going to ease off slightly. We're not going to totally ease off, we're just going to ease off slightly. So in terms of the swim, it's 6:20, I think. No, I get it exactly. In terms of the run, 11, 53, 15, 15, no, far too fast. It's 12, 12, and that gets us exactly 14.75. Realise that's slightly wrong there. And in terms of the bike, 30 is 34.6. Is that a bit fast when we're looking at 36.55? No, that's probably about right. We've eased off sufficiently. Let's just go 15. So we go slightly slower again. So 30.15 is slightly easing off of pace, trying to make sure we've hit the pace on the swim, and then we hit that pace on the run after a reasonably hard but not very hard bike. The next thing we're going to do is a park run, another park run at Bushy Park. And he was 19.49 last year. We're going to see if this year we can actually increase that by about 10 seconds to 19.39. That's quite a big increase to a certain extent, but it increases our speed to 13.36. And if we hit that, even if we do any PB, but if we do a 10-second PB, we know we're smack on target to hit our 2020 in the Bristol qualifier. After that, there's a cycle time trial that we're going to do the next week. That's 10 miles. And effectively, that will be 26 minutes. If we can hit 26 minutes, even 26:20, perhaps it's a bit slow. 26:10. We know we'll be going above our race pace. Probably do 26. I'd have thought just over 37 kilometers an hour. We might even get slightly better than that. So it's going to be between 25-26 minutes, I think, for that. If we can hit that, then again, we're looking at a really good chance of hitting our pacing when it comes to the qualifying race. And the last thing we're doing 2 weeks before we race our main race is the Blenheim Triathlon. And here obviously we've got full distance test, but we know that T1 is particularly tough. It's uphill for about 200 meters. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to try and come in roughly where we need to be on our swim, and we're going to try and hit this pace for the cycle. And then on the run, we're not going to care too much. We're going to go 21:20. We'll add a minute to it. We'll go down. We don't care, because what we're doing is we're not going to tire ourselves out. What we're going to do is we've tested our speeds. If we've hit these speeds, we're absolutely not worried about the run. All we'll do is we'll ease the run off. We're in a taper period for our major race, and in our major race during the taper we're going to do speed work, and we're actually going to get that pace whatever happens. But our mentality is going to be slap bang there by hitting those two. So there's a plan for next year to actually hit the paces we need to hit in our target race, which will be 95 second hundredths in the swim, it's 1:35, a speed of 36.5 on the bike, and a run speed of 14.7 kilometers an hour, and that will get us in at 1:04.63 plus our transitions. Our transitions will have to work on depending on what type of transition it's going to be at Bristol, which we don't know yet.
Alright, so there you have it. We've looked at a client and we've looked at particular races that they've done. From those races we've designed targets for next year that we're going to hit in our major target race. And that's what you really should have. You should have 1 or 2 major target races and other races that lead up to that test your pace that you can potentially hold for that major target race. And remember, your major target race you're going to be tapered for, so it's very unlikely you're going to hit those paces exactly in races prior to that, or even after that, if it's longer than perhaps 6 weeks. So think carefully. Don't set your targets for things you can't actually achieve. They've got to be achievable targets. If you set yourself unachievable targets, you're always on failure. And you don't want to be on failure, you want to be on success mode. But you want to know that, oh, that was 0.1 of a kilometre per hour faster. If you're on 50 kilometres an hour on the bike, that might be feasible. But if you're on 25, you really don't want 0.1 of a kilometre an hour increase. You want 1 kilometre, 2 kilometres, 5 kilometres an hour increase. That's how you're going to judge yourself. It's all personal, and success is a personal thing to you. It can either be podiuming or it can just be finishing that race because it's a tough race and I've never done it before. Excellent. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas. We'll be back in the new year with some different thoughts on triathlon. Please enjoy yourself, have peace and happiness, and perhaps more than 1 or 2 bits of pieces of pie.